Abyssal Demons are an amazing way to level up your account and earn completely AFK money in Runescape 3. Today we'll look at the loot from 5,000 Abyssal Demons and what other benefits this amazing RuneScape 3 training method can get you. Firstly, let's take a look at what you need for this method with both your gear setup and also the level requirements. Firstly, the only true requirement to be able to do this is that you will have to have 85 Slayer. However, in order to fully AFK this monster and therefore use this as both a completely AFK moneymaker and combat XP grinder, then you'll need a few other requirements. These requirements are level 80 plus in all combat stats that you're going to be training. I would highly recommend this because it will just speed up the entire process, and if you're lower than that you can run into troubles with actually regenerating enough health to make it completely AFK, but you can still do it at probably level 70 plus combat stats, and I'm talking about 70 plus attack, etc. if you're using melee, so that's something that I would highly recommend. You also need a demon horn necklace, which in turn requires 90 prayer and 90 dungeoneering, or a split dragon tooth necklace requiring 60 prayer and 60 dungeoneering. Either of the two, as long as you've got one of them, it will be ideal. And so I guess the other requirements are having 60 prayer and 60 dungeoneering. Both necklaces can be bought from the rewards trainer of Demonheim and require 35,000 tokens for the demon horn necklace and 17,000 for the split dragon tooth necklace. So ideally at least have one of them if you're wanting to do this fully AFK. This isn't always necessary, as you can replace these with a Blood Fury amulet if you own one and use prayer potions, or use a penance aura to regain prayer. It's just purely to simplify things down and allow a more AFK setup. In order for this to actually work effectively with the necklaces, then you'll also require an attuned ectoplasmator if using the split dragon tooth or demon horn necklaces, which is a rare drop from ghost mobs, so you kind of have to get one of those before you can use the split dragon tooth to be able to regain your prayer, and that's ultimately what it's all about and why you'll require it. Of course, there are alternative methods where maybe you don't want to use this to regen prayer and actually you're happy to use prayer renewal potions, but alternatively you can then just pray melee and use enhanced devoted, so that's an alternative to using any of these. I would highly recommend also having tier 92 prayer for soul split if you're wanting to use this method as like the fully AFK, and that will basically allow you to get super easy health regen, and so you're never really going to have to worry about it, and that makes it even more AFK. Furthermore, if you're going to be using mage or range, I would pretty much recommend you get the AoE magic ability Corruption Blast or Corruption Shot for the range setup, because it will just make things super easy and allow you to basically AoE more mobs, and it basically chunks them all down right to basically zero once you've released one of these abilities. Obviously they're constantly being used. You can use a continuous setup, so you can just literally put revolution on your combat bar, and so you don't have to do anything at all, and that's just going to speed this right up. Obviously, if you're using melee, I would highly recommend using a halberd or a scythe that just basically allows you to hit 2 tiles in front and 2 tiles to the right, blah blah blah, and use all of your AoE damage abilities that you get, things like Hurricane, that sort of thing. Basically just increase your XP per hour and also the money you're making, because you'll be able to get the damage on the mobs faster and therefore more kills an hour. In terms of gearing and inventory items, we'll start with the inventory. I highly recommend using aggression potions to attract the demons, otherwise you're going to have to be chasing around, and this really basically ruins the entire method and it no longer becomes AFK. So first off, get aggression potions. You can buy them straight off the G or make them yourself, whatever you want to do. It's basically a requirement. Then you also have overloads of any tier that you have access to. Doesn't really matter, just as long as you get some sort of stat boosting potion, whether that be an overload or just the highest combat potion for the combat type that you are using. It will basically just improve your damage per second and therefore improve the amount of kills you're going to get per hour, and therefore your money and XP are going to go up respectively. So really important for you guys to actually bring those. If you're worried about getting food or running low on hit points, then if you have an enhanced Excalibur, I highly recommend you bring this as well, because essentially if you maybe miss a few checks on your account and you realize that you haven't your prayer's gone down or something's gone wrong, then you can use the enhanced Excalibur to get some extra passive healing, get yourself back up to the required level. And also in that time you usually find that Abyssal Demons do drop sharks, so you can always pick those up at the same time. So it's just a kind of extra, rather than bringing food yourself, which you really don't need if you've got Soul Split and you've got all of these extras. If you've got a Blood Necklace Shard, you're probably not going to have a problem. So something you should always kind of bring in your inventory just in case. And you might end up not using it, and therefore you can get rid of it. And yeah, just weigh it up, especially if you're a low level account and you do actually have access to the enhanced Excalibur. It's a nice add-on. Now, the most important item that you're going to want for this method, and to, just basically make this thing super easy in terms of your money, how much you can make, is bringing a spring cleaner. So this will basically dismantle any of the cheap and useless salvage items that you'll receive, because there are a few, and to automatically alch the rune salvage and more expensive salvage items that you get as a drop from Abyssal Demons. And this is really, really good. It allows you to essentially just get the coin value, same price as kind of high alching, and yeah, it's just super easy, super nice, and the cash goes straight into your loot bag. So yeah, it's really, really nice. And of course, this saves inventory space and time looting, so any of that is really, really nice. For the gear setups, I recommend using tier 70 to tier 80 non-degradable armor, so that in things like subjugation for mage, bandos for melee, and armadillo for range. Anything higher can basically be using things like anima core at tier 80 for each class. It might be a good idea, but it can be costly, so if you don't have the cash, it doesn't matter. You can save up by doing this method for a few hours, and you can basically buy this thing. So it's kind of weigh it up in terms of how much money do you have on your account, is it really worth it, just weigh these things up. But ultimately tier 70 gear is more than enough, especially if you augment it and you put extra perks that are going to help you out, Demon Slayer, things like that. It's going to really, really help boost up your DPS. And of course, having enhanced devoted, if you want to use the melee protection prayer and then basically use penance to regain your prayer points, it's just basically going to help you out a lot. So yeah, kind of what I would run as your kind of main body. As far as other equipment, I recommend any cheap high tier gloves like Celestial Hand Wraps or Razorback gloves, or basically the highest tier gloves that you've got that aren't going to cost you a fortune in repair costs. Ideally non-degradable, since you don't really need the stat boosts that some of the highest tier gloves are going to basically give you. But make of that what you will. Is it going to provide as much DPS increase that is basically going to get you more money per hour and more kills, or do you just want to purely get a ton of XP and you don't care about how much money you're making? Then it's just weighing that up, and so you can get more XP per hour by using better gear because you'll get more kills, but maybe you'll run up a lot more repair costs. So I highly recommend you kind of weigh that up yourself. And of course, at the time of this recording, I typically use Celestial Hand Wraps or Razorback gloves because they're really cheap and high tier gear, but yeah, they do degrade to dust. So yeah, make of that what you will. The same thing goes for the boots. The highest tier you have is usually fine because it doesn't require the highest tier gear for this method to work. Cape, of course, do the same thing. You just use the highest tier cape that you have. If you've got fire cape, if you've got a 99 skill cape, whatever it is, if you've got max cape, just bring that along. It just helps out. And for the ring slot, I recommend the highest tier luck ring that you have for just basically increased drop table chances, since they do proc every now and again and they can get you a little bit of extra cash. For additional inventory items that are just going to speed the process up, I recommend using magic notepaper. So that's for noting any drops like abyssal whips and crystal key halves that can be a pain in the backside, as well as using an upgraded gem bag can help as well for storing dragonstones, diamonds and rubies, which are commonly dropped by Abyssal Demons. So it just makes the looting process really easy. You get your loot interface up, you can just go into it, you can click loot all, and then you can leave and basically carry on doing whatever you're doing outside of the game. Super easy, just come back every like 1 to 2 minutes and just, you know, press on the loot key. You can keep it open now. You don't have to actually close down the loot menu, so you can genuinely make this method super AFK. The only things you really have to pay attention to are popping your aggression potion and popping your overload and making sure that your prayer doesn't run out. That's literally it. And if you've got a split dragon tooth necklace or a demon horn, you don't even have to worry about that. So it's just purely about what you want to do, how AFK you want to make it, and of course just coming back and checking the loot if you're interested in money. If you're only in it for combat XP, then don't even bother. You can just come back every 5 minutes, just make sure that your account doesn't log. Action bar setup should have any AoE abilities with the respective 100% adrenaline abilities in the form of sunshine and death swiftness if you're using magical range, and then basically all of your hurricanes, things that are like dragon breath, that sort of thing, anything that basically is going to allow you to get multiple targets with one chain, greater chain if you have it, greater ricochet, whatever it is, just basically add them all in, and it's going to help you to basically increase your DPS and your kills an hour, and as we've said before, will increase your money and XP. So that's kind of what you're after. In terms of what you want to do, once you're fully geared up and your inventory is set up, then you need to travel to the top floor of the Slayer Tower near Canifis. You can get there by walking from Canifis and just going west, and then you end up there, and then you go in, then you need to go to the central staircase and right click and move to the top floor. From there, then you want to cross the plank and go to the roof of the Slayer Tower. Obviously, there are a few other additional ways of getting there, and if you have any of the Slayer masks, I believe they were released as part of Treasure Hunter promotions, and I think you can pick them up from various different places now, but they come in the form of things like the Abyssal Mask, or the Helm of Grotesquerie, or the Mask of Granite, or stuff like that. Essentially, they give you a teleport option, which will basically allow you to go to various different places where Abyssal Demons are. The Abyssal Demon Mask is the one that you want for Abyssal Demons. Mask of Granite is the, I believe, the Gargoyle Mask, and then you can basically teleport to the Slayer Tower. Then, as with the actual walking there, you can then go to the top floor and then cross the plank and then up onto the roof. So once you've reached the roof, you may find that the world has someone else using it, so just travel back down the staircase and hop worlds and then retry. Once you've found a free world, walk to the top of the roof and you'll see that there's a big opening on the floor where it's kind of fallen in. You just want to stand at the edge of this, and then once you've done that, use your overload or high tier combat potion, and then activate any of the combat auras that you might have, or alternatively use your penance aura depending on what setup you're going with, and then you want to activate your soul split and tier 95 curses if you have them. And then if you have them unlocked, and that's basically to allow yourself getting better DPS, and then AoE the mobs down using your AoE action bars once you've popped your aggression potion. So this is all the sort of stuff you want to be doing, and then the method is literally just there. And as we said previously, a useful tip, just make sure that the looting menu is up, and then you can have this open continuously so you can check back regularly and loot all of the useful and expensive items in one go. So the question you've probably been wondering is how much money and how much XP am I likely to be getting from playing RuneScape using this method? Well, the answer is quite a lot. Over the 5,000 Abyssal Demons loot, I was able to generate a decent chunk of GP, and I was doing it literally like purely AFK. I was barely spending any time. I checked back, I wasn't doing it like 100% effectively, which meant, sometimes I missed a bit of money, but from the approximate 5 hours of doing Abyssal Demons, I was able to get just over 18 million GP, which is about 3.6 million GP per hour, which is great as it's so AFK, and that was without using the Death Relic power, where you can essentially get noted ashes drops, which would increase the amount of money you can get by about 1.8 million an hour. So you could generate up to 5.4 million an hour from the ash drops as well. And of course, that requires you to have the Death Note Relic power from archaeology. So you need the level requirement for that if you want to do that. And you'll need a way of regenerating your prayer. Usually what people do is enhance devoted 4, and then they pray melee AFK, and then you can basically make it AFK that way. You can usually get through about 1,000 to 1,400 demons per hour, which equates to about 600 to 800,000 combat XP per hour, which is really nice. And you can also net you a decent chunk of invention XP alongside whilst training as well. So for a completely AFK training method, that is pretty nice. You can net yourself a ton of GP and most importantly, a ton of combat XP at the same time. It's a really great method. I've used it continuously throughout the past where you just don't have to do anything and RuneScape can just be on in the background. If you want a more kind of active method, then maybe you want to check out the Water Fiends Binding Contract Guide or the Ripper Demon Binding Contracts Guide. They should both be on screen right now on the left and the right. They're really amazing ways to make a ton of money. I hope you enjoyed this one and I hope you'll join me in the next video coming soon. Goodbye.